So as you all know, there's been a multitude of lawsuits lobbed against the FCC ever since they decided to unilaterally repeal net neutrality and go against the overwhelming majority of the American people. Now, it seemed as though every single week the FCC was being sued by someone. There were attorneys generals who decided to lead the cause. So now we have attorneys general from 23 different states who are suing the FCC. There are consumer advocacy groups, tech companies, all suing the FCC, and this all amounts to a total of 12 lawsuits against them. However, it's now going to be the case that these lawsuits will all be consolidated into one lawsuit, and basically now attorneys general, tech companies, and consumer advocacy groups will all be teaming up to sue the FCC. So that's basically one side of the fight in this legal battle that we're now learning more about. But who's going to be defending the FCC? We know that Ajit Pai certainly is going to have to defend his repeal order, but he's not doing it alone because there are three main lobbying groups that are deciding to come to the rescue and defend his repeal of net neutrality. This includes NCTA, CTIA, and US Telecom. Now, what do those acronyms mean? Who are they, and why do we care? Well, as John Brodkin of Ars Technica explains, NCTA represents cable companies such as Comcast, Charter, Cox, and Altice. CTIA represents the biggest mobile carriers such as AT&T, Verizon Wireless, T-Mobile, and Sprint. US Telecom represents wireline telcos with copper and fiber networks such as AT&T and Verizon. All three groups also represent a range of smaller ISPs. So we have essentially the entirety of the broadband and telecom industry teaming up to defend Ajit Pai's repeal of net neutrality against the will of their own customers and the American people. They're doing this by proxy of these lobbying firms that they hired. Now, if you'll recall, it was, I believe, Comcast who argued that they would never block or throttle content. However, by defending the FCC's repeal in court, they're pushing for a repeal of regulations that allows them to do just that. And Comcast is already, quote, accidentally blocking legitimate websites like PayPal and Steam through their protected browsing option. And even though this option can technically be turned off, customers may not know that it can be turned off. And furthermore, it demonstrates that companies don't have to go to greater lengths to ensure that content isn't being blocked now that net neutrality is gone. So even if it may be accidental, it's still happening, and they don't really have to take precautions to ensure that it doesn't happen. And there was also another, quote, accident regarding Comcast, who decided to inexplicably block an encrypted email service known as Tutanota. Now, even though it appears as though this was due to a glitch, Comcast has decided to remain silent on this issue. So understand how despicable these companies like Comcast are. They tell us that they would never block or throttle content, but here they are hiring lobbying firms that are now defending their ability to do this. That's what's happening. It's despicable. They are brazenly lying, and the reason why they can lie and get away with it and not face any consumer backlash is because they hold monopolies in most municipalities. So if you don't like Comcast, if you don't like their shady tactics, then what are you going to do? Cancel? Well, then you're just left without internet, because in a lot of areas, you have one or two options.
You want me to give you the number of a different cable company that can... Oh, wait, we're it, aren't we?
So this is incredibly frustrating, and these companies are absolutely shameless. Now, what does Ajit Pai have to say about this? Is he backing down at all? Well, unfortunately, not only is he not backing down, but he's deciding to be condescending yet again and talk down to the American people as if we're stupid. So as Edward C. Begg of USA Today reports, FCC Chairman Ajit Pai defended his agency's repeal of net neutrality regulations at the mobile industry's annual conference here, saying the lighter rules set to replace them will amount to, quote, targeted enforcement. Nobody gets a free pass. The United States is simply making a shift from preemptive regulation, which foolishly presumes that every last wireless company is an anti-competitive monopolist, to targeted enforcement based on actual market failure or anti-competitive conduct, he said. First and foremost, Ajit, it's not foolish to presume that they're going to resort to anti-competitive, anti-consumer conduct, because that's what they've been doing, hence the need for net neutrality rules, which you just decided to repeal. Now, it's also obviously the case that the overwhelming majority of the American people do not approve of his repeal of net neutrality. So in response to him going against the American people, this is what he had to say. Pai responded that, generally speaking, I would hope that public opinion over time was based more on facts and less on public relations, says the former Verizon attorney. So it's not you who has the facts, it's Ajit Pai who has the facts. A former and probably future attorney for Verizon. How condescending is that to suggest that our position is not based on facts, it's based on public relations? Well, first of all, that doesn't even make any sense. Look at these lobbying firms who are hired by the telecom, who are fighting to keep the repeal of net neutrality permanent. I mean, that's public relations. The spin that you're doing, that's a PR spin. You're trying to piss on our legs and tell us that it's raining, as Judge Judy would say, but we know that you are bullshitting us because you are in cahoots with the telecom industry. You're a liar, Ajit. Nobody believes anything that you're saying. So the fact that you continue to gaslight us and tell us that we don't have the facts on our side and we're just influenced by public relations is absurd. It's just nothing more than projection. You're the one who's influenced by public relations. You're the one literally teaming up with Verizon to plan skits about how you're a Verizon shill. So, look, this is going to be a really long legal battle ahead of us. I'm really hoping that more and more states take action before the repeal of net neutrality takes effect, because regardless if this battle is settled right away or not, which it won't be, even if a judge decides to put a stay on it, I mean, there's going to be a period of time where Americans do not have any protections. Now, thankfully, it is the case that states are gearing up to protect net neutrality in a multitude of ways, but the fact remains that if your state doesn't act, net neutrality will be gone by the end of April and certainly by May. So this is going to be a really long legal battle that is certainly not going to be solved anytime soon, but thankfully, there's a lot more people who are fighting for us, and tech companies and consumer advocacy groups fighting for us, than there are fighting for Ajit Pai. And these companies like Verizon and Comcast, they're kicking and screaming because they want to make sure that what they were able to finally achieve through a shill like Ajit Pai doesn't go away. But certainly, it is going to go away if we have anything to say about it.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.